Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the War and Peace podcast. Last episode, we talked about the global political tensions. Today, we're going to be examining closer the Syrian conflict. So, we're going to be starting with the U.S. withdrawal. So, recently, the U.S. military convoys have been leaving Syria, and they have been heading to Iraq to guard oil fields, which has drawn a lot of controversy. They were met in Kurdish villages by angry people that hucked rotten vegetables and other items at the convoys and yelled at them for what they have done. It is actually a pretty reasonable reaction considering the fact that now the U.S. is going to guard an oil field instead of the people in Syria. It is a pretty messed up move by the United States, and I do not agree with it. And obviously so do the Syrian citizens with their reaction to it. So, that's some of the newest news coming in. Also about the Turkish Army, there was a 5-day ceasefire granted, but that has ended by, I think, 2 days ago. U.S. troops have left Syria, obviously, and now the Turkish Army has opportunity to advance into Syria. So the Turkish Army, their goal is to secure the area between the Turkish border and the M4 highway, and they want to root out the YPD, who they view as a terrorist organization. So that's what's going on with the U.S. and Turkish armies relating with each other right now. So Jacob's going to go into detail about other parts.
So the Syrian Arab Army, which is the military of the government forces of Syria, have deployed past the Euphrates River, which is the farthest east they've gone in about 5 years in their own country to fight enemy combatants. They've deployed across the northern border near the M4 highway in the city of Manbij to combat the Turkish forces and also to fight the U.S. convoys that are in retreat past the Iraq border. The Kurds and the Syrians have been fighting since the beginning of the civil war, but with the U.S. withdrawal and the Turkish invasion, they have united in the name of one nation to fight back the invaders. The Russian army has sent support to the Assad government in means of air support, Spetsnaz units, support units for artillery fire, and whatnot. And this is a big step in the Syrian crisis because with the help of other powers and the invasion of a more powerful enemy in the north, this could decide whether or not the Assad regime stays in power or the rebels win. Brett, could you elaborate on any of this?
Yeah, that's 100% right. Tensions are really rising in the Syrian area, and all these, bigger factors coming into play, like the Russian army and Turkish army, are really going to have a huge effect. There's really no way to tell what's going to come up next because things can escalate very rapidly. So these next couple of weeks, we're going to be seeing a lot of changes, and we're going to be seeing probably more conflict arise. So Jacob's going to talk about the Kurds.
Yes. The Kurdish people have been fighting hand in hand with the United States against the Syrian armed forces and ISIS fighters since 2012, when the Syrian civil war really kicked off. The withdrawal of the U.S. forces have enraged the Kurds because this is, as Brett said earlier, a undescribable insult to the people. They're moving to Iraq and southern Syria to protect oil fields, like Brett said, and the Kurdish people are feeling betrayed. I would understand that. Kurds have been attacking military units of the United States and throwing rocks and such at vehicles and whatnot. I think that, obviously, like I said, this is a understandable reaction. I would be enraged too if I was Kurdish. The United States and Trump signing the bill to withdraw these forces is what he says a important step in securing the peace in the Middle East, which could be true, it could not be true. We'll have to see what's coming in the future. The reason for this withdrawal, as Donald Trump said, is that the Kurdish people did not fight with the United States in World War II, which is kind of an ignorant thing to say, considering that the Kurdish people were oppressed even then. They didn't get a chance to do anything in the World War II but oppose the Nazi-backed government in Iraq.
Yes, so this is obviously, like we said, very controversial because of these reasons. It seems like a very harsh move and a very unneeded move by the U.S. And it seems like it makes our relations with the Middle East get more heated. Our relations right now in that area have been crippled, and it has really been a struggle to keep things at bay with how we make these controversial decisions like that. And I think they said something about how they were trying to not let the U.S. go into Iraq. So because of all these things that have happened, it really has generated a huge conflict with our government and anyone else's government in the Middle East. So it all really comes down to these next couple weeks and the next very careful steps that need to be made to make sure that this does not escalate into a full-out war, like a bigger war than it already has been. But yes, this is just kind of a terrible circumstance, right, Jacob?
It is. It is terrible, but I believe that some light could come out of this with the United States leaving over Iraq. As I said, the Kurds and the Syrian government have come together to fight the Turkish army. This could mean that Syria is close to finding peace. They are uniting some of the biggest combatants that were fighting against each other since 2012 against a common enemy. Now, the Iraq government said that the United States Army is not welcome within their borders and that she'll only be there to move through. But since the Iraq government is controlled by the United States, basically, I don't think that will be happening.
Yeah, it's just tensions in general, and like you said, there is a lot of light that can come out of this, but United States-wise, our relations with this area is kind of crippled based off of the past events that have been going on, and but it is good for them in that area. Maybe they will be able to unite and finally take down the corruption going on in the Syrian area. And maybe this will end up as like the best circumstance if the United States does back out, but it also causes problems between us and countries over there as well.
If the Syrians would push back the Turkish forces and make excursions over the border, this could cause NATO forces or NATO countries like Germany, the United Kingdom, France, Italy even, to intervene in this in order to protect Turkey, which is a NATO ally. This could cause even more problems because many other countries would be getting involved in the war, and that would cause widespread panic, I think.
Yes, the more countries that get involved with the circumstance, the much bigger deal it becomes. And I think in this case, this is one of those things where it needs to be about the people, the Kurdish and Turkish and all the people in Syria. I feel like they need to handle this themselves because once all the other countries get involved, it's probably going to go completely insane, because of how all of the alliances would drag more and more countries into it, and it would turn more into a complete global conflict. So, that's all the information we have to you on the Syrian conflict. Episode 3 will be covering and going in depth on European conflicts, ranging from any sort of thing that we talked about during episode 1. So, I'm your host, Brett Lampley.
And I'm Jacob Beaumont.
And remember, kids, choose volleyball and not radical Islamic terrorism.